The frost bit through Lyra's scales like tiny knives. Each step sent pain shooting through her torn wing, but she kept moving forward through the valley. Against her chest, wrapped in the last shred of her nest cloth, Pip barely breathed. The hatchling's body felt cold, even pressed against her own warmth. Point three settlements had driven her away with their automated guns. The machines didn't care that she came begging, not threatening. They saw her size and her teeth, and they fired. One blast had ripped her wing. Now she couldn't fly, couldn't hunt, couldn't do anything except walk and hope. The farm appeared through the morning mist like a ghost, small compared to the big colony buildings. Just one house, one barn, fields covered in snow. Lyra stopped at the edge of the fence. Her instincts screamed at her to run. Humans meant danger. Humans had killed her mate. Humans wanted her people dead. But Pip whimpered against her chest, and Lyra knew her baby had maybe one day left. Maybe less. She climbed over the fence carefully, trying not to break it. The house stayed quiet. No alarms. No guns. She moved closer, her claws crunching in the snow. Still nothing. Was anyone even home? The door opened. Lyra froze. Her body tensed, ready to shield Pip from bullets. But the old human who stepped out didn't hold a weapon. He wore thick clothes against the cold, and his hair was white like the snow. He stared at her with wide eyes, but not angry eyes. Surprised eyes. They looked at each other for a long moment. Lyra slowly unwrapped Pip from the cloth. She held her baby out slightly, letting the human see how small and weak the hatchling was. Pip's eyes were closed. The little chest barely moved. Lyra made a soft sound in her throat, the closest thing to begging she could manage. The human's face changed. His eyes got softer. He looked at Pip, then at Lyra's torn wing, then back at Pip. He held up one hand, palm out. Then he turned and went back inside. Lyra's heart sank. He was getting a gun. She should run. But her legs wouldn't move. She was too tired, too hungry, too desperate. The door opened again. The human came out carrying a bowl and a cloth. Steam rose from the bowl. He walked toward her slowly, still with one hand up. When he got close, he stopped and crouched down. He set the bowl on the ground and backed away a few steps. Lyra stared at the bowl. White liquid, still warm. Milk. She recognized the smell. And next to it, he put pieces of dried meat. She looked at the human. He nodded and gestured toward the bowl, then toward Pip. Slowly, Lyra moved forward. She picked up the bowl carefully in her claws and brought it to her mouth. The milk was warm and rich. She took some in her mouth, then lowered her head to Pip. She let the milk drip into the hatchling's mouth, a few drops at a time. Pip swallowed, then swallowed again. The little eyes opened just a bit. Lyra felt something break inside her chest. Relief crashed over her so hard she almost fell. She fed Pip more milk, then some tiny pieces of the soft meat, chewed first to make them easier to swallow. The hatchling ate. Actually ate. The first real food in 4 days. When the bowl was empty, Lyra looked at the human again. He was still there, still watching. His eyes looked wet. She didn't understand that, but his face seemed kind. She bowed her head to him. It was a gesture from her own people, showing respect and gratitude. She didn't know if humans understood it, but she had nothing else to offer. The human smiled a little. He said something in his language. The sounds meant nothing to her, but the tone was gentle. He pointed at the barn, then made a sleeping gesture with his hands against his cheek. Then he pointed at her, and Pip. Was he offering shelter? Lyra looked at the barn. It would be warmer than the open valley. Pip needed warmth. She looked back at the human and nodded once, copying the gesture she'd seen him make. The human smile got bigger. He stood up and walked toward the barn. Lyra followed carefully. Pip clutched against her chest. The hatchling was already stronger, looking around with curious eyes. Inside the barn, it was much warmer. Animals in stalls looked at her nervously, but the human made calming sounds to them. He led her to an empty corner with clean straw. He pointed at it, then left for a moment. When he came back, he had more blankets. He laid them in the straw, making a soft nest. Lyra settled into it carefully. The blankets were warm and smelled clean. Pip curled against her, finally relaxed enough to really sleep. The hatchling's breathing was already easier, steadier. The human watched them for a moment. Then he said something else in his gentle voice and left the barn. But he didn't close the big doors. He left them open. A choice. She could leave whenever she wanted. Lyra lay in the warm straw with her baby breathing softly against her. For the first time in months, since her mate died and her clan scattered, she felt something other than fear. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The farm stayed quiet and peaceful. No alarms, no guns, no shouting. Just an old human who had looked at a desperate mother and seen someone who needed help. Lyra closed her eyes. She would rest today. Tomorrow, she would figure out what came next. Tomorrow, she would try to understand why this human was different. Tomorrow, she would find a way to thank him properly. But today, her baby was fed and warm and safe. Today, that was enough. Lyra woke to the sound of footsteps in the snow outside. Pip stirred against her, making small, chirping sounds. The hatchling was hungry again, a good sign. Yesterday, Pip had been too weak to even ask for food. The barn door opened wider, and the old human came in. He carried another bowl and more cloth. When he saw Lyra was awake, he smiled and said something. She still didn't understand the words, but she recognized his tone. Friendly. Calmed out, he set the bowl down closer this time, not as far away. Then he sat on a wooden box nearby and waited. Lyra fed Pip first, letting the little one drink the warm milk. Then she drank some herself. Her own hunger was fierce after days of nothing. The human watched them eat, and his face showed satisfaction. When they finished, the human pointed at himself. He said a word clearly. Walter. Then he pointed at himself again and repeated it. Walter. Lyra understood. A name. She tried to make the sound. Valtir. It came out rough through her throat, but recognizable. The human's face lit up. He nodded enthusiastically and pointed at her, raising his eyebrows in question. She thought for a moment, then made the sound from her own language. Lyra. Lyra, Walter repeated, getting it almost right. Then he pointed at Pip. Another question in his eyes. Pip, she said. Pip. Walter smiled at the hatchling, who chirped back at him. For the next hour, Walter brought objects and spoke their names. Bowl, water, blanket, food, warm, cold. He was patient, repeating words when she struggled. Lyra discovered her throat could make most human sounds, just not smoothly yet. She tried to teach him some of her words, too. She drew symbols in the dirt floor of the barn with her claw. The symbol for safety. The symbol for gratitude. The symbol for family. Walter studied the symbols carefully. He found a stick and copied them, checking with her to see if he got them right. When he drew the family symbol, he paused. His eyes got that wet look again. He touched the symbol gently, then said something quiet in his language. Lyra didn't know the words, but she understood loss. She'd seen it in her own people's eyes when they fled their burning homes. This human had lost family too. She reached out slowly and touched his shoulder with one careful claw. Walter looked up at her and nodded. A moment of shared pain, shared understanding. Pip broke the serious mood by trying to climb onto Walter's lap. The hatchling scrambled up his leg, tiny claws catching on his clothes. Walter laughed and helped the little one up. Pip curled in his lap, making happy sounds. Something in Lyra's chest loosened at the sight. Her baby, comfortable with this human, safe with him. Over the next few days, they built a routine. Walter brought food 3 times a day. He showed Lyra around the barn, introducing her to his animals. 6 goats, 8 chickens, 2 old horses. The animals were nervous at first, but they learned Lyra meant no harm. Pip loved them all, especially the chickens. Lyra learned more words. Yes. No. Help. Thank you. Please. Good morning. The basic pieces of conversation. Walter learned her symbols for danger, friend, and trust out on the 4th day. Walter came running to the barn. His face showed worry. He pointed outside and made a flying motion with his hands, then pointed at his eyes. Something flying, something watching. Lyra understood immediately. Patrol drones. She'd seen them before, hunting her people. She grabbed Pip and moved deeper into the barn, into shadows. Walter nodded and left quickly. Through the barn walls, Lyra heard the drone's humming sound pass overhead. It circled once, twice, 3 times. then moved away. Walter returned later. He looked stressed. He made gestures that Lyra understood as questions. Who was looking for her? Why were they hunting her? Lyra didn't have enough words yet. Instead, she drew in the dirt. She drew her people's symbol, then drew many of them. Then she drew human symbols and weapons. She drew her people running, hiding. She drew Pip's father falling. Walter watched, his face growing more serious. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke, and even though she didn't know all the words, she understood the meaning. He was angry, not at her, at whoever had hunted her people. He drew his own picture then. A small group, maybe representing his family. Then he drew them crossed out. Gone. He pointed to himself alone. Then he pointed to her and Pip. He drew all three of them together and circled the drawing. New family, his gesture said. Chosen family. Lyra felt her throat tighten. This human, this Walter, was offering more than food and shelter. He was offering belonging. She drew her symbol for yes, then the symbol for gratitude, then the symbol for protection. She would guard him too. If danger came, she would not run and leave him alone. Walter seemed to understand. He placed his hand over her clawed hand for a moment, a promise between them. That evening, Walter brought tools to the barn. He showed Lyra how to help with farm work. Her strength could move heavy things he struggled with. Her height could reach places he couldn't. Her claws could grip objects his hands couldn't hold. They worked together until dark, fixing a broken fence section. Pip played in the snow nearby, catching snowflakes and chirping with Joy as the sun set, painting the sky orange and purple. Lyra realized something had changed. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She wasn't just hiding, waiting for the next attack, the next loss. She was living, building, planning for tomorrow. And she had done this by trusting one old human who had looked at a desperate mother and decided to help instead of harm. 2 weeks passed like a dream Lyra was afraid to wake from. Each morning, Walter brought breakfast. Each day, they worked the farm together. Each night, Pip grew stronger, more playful, more alive. Lyra's human words improved. She could now say simple sentences. Good morning, Walter. Pip is hungry. Thank you for food. Walter learned more of her symbols and even some of her sounds. They built a language between them, part human, part dragon, part gesture. Today, Walter was teaching her about his plants. He showed her the winter garden under glass, where green things grew despite the snow outside. He explained seasons, planting, harvesting. Lyra was fascinated. Her people had been nomadic before the war. They hunted, gathered, moved with the weather. This idea of staying in one place and making food grow was new to her. She drew symbols showing her understanding. She added her own knowledge of weather patterns, things she could sense that Walter couldn't. When snow would come, when the wind would change. Her people had always been able to read the sky. Walter looked excited. He brought paper and they drew together, combining what they each knew, his farming knowledge and her weather sense. They planned the spring planting using both sets of information. Partners, Walter said, pointing at the plans, then at her, then at himself. Lyra repeated the word. Partners. She liked how it sounded. Equal. Together. Pip interrupted by running into the garden and sliding on some ice, tumbling into a pile of hay. The hatchling popped up chirping with laughter. Both Lyra and Walter laughed too. In the evening, something changed. Walter became nervous. He kept looking out the window. Finally, he sat down with Lyra and spoke slowly, using the words she knew. Person coming. Tomorrow. Neighbor. She is good, I think. But worried. Lyra understood. Another human would see her. She touched her throat, asking a question with the gesture. I tell her about you, Walter said. She wants to meet. Her name is Grace. She is farm near here. She is friend. Lyra considered this. More humans meant more danger. But Walter trusted this Grace. And Lyra trusted Walter. Okay, she said. I meet Grace. The next morning, Lyra waited in the barn while Walter went to greet his neighbor. She could hear voices outside. A woman's voice, younger than Walter's but not young. Nervous voice. Walter brought her to the barn entrance. The woman stopped when she saw Lyra. Grace was tall for a human, with dark skin and gray in her black hair. Her eyes went wide, but she didn't run. Grace, this is Lyra, Walter said. Lyra, this is Grace. Lyra slowly stood up, being careful not to seem threatening. She bowed her head in respect, the way she'd learned her people's elders did. Hello, Grace, she said carefully in human words. Grace's mouth fell open. It talks. She talks. You talk. She looked at Walter. You said she was smart, but I didn't think. She is person, Walter said firmly. Not animal. Person. Grace looked back at Lyra, really looked at her, studying her face, her eyes, the way she held herself. Pip chose that moment to come running out, chasing a chicken. The hatchling bumped into Grace's legs and sat down surprised. Then Pip looked up at Grace and chirped happily. Grace stared down at the baby dragon. Pip grabbed her pants leg and tried to climb up the way the little one did with Walter. Grace knelt down automatically, and Pip climbed in her arms, settling there like it was the most natural thing. Oh, Grace said softly. Oh, you're just a baby, aren't you? Lyra watched carefully. Grace's face had changed. The fear was gone. Instead, there was wonder and something soft. She was dying, Walter said quietly. Lyra brought her here, begging for help. I couldn't turn them away. Grace looked up at Lyra. How old is she? The baby. Lyra held up fingers. She'd learned human number gestures. 3 months. 3 months old, Grace whispered. She looked at Pip, then at Lyra. And someone was hunting you? Lyra nodded. She pointed to her torn wing, which was healing but still couldn't fly. She made a gun gesture, something Walter had taught her. Grace's face hardened. They shot you while you had a baby? Another nod. That's not right, Grace said. That's not right at all. She stood up, still holding Pip, who seemed perfectly happy there. Walter, does the marshal know? Devin came by last week, Walter said. I told him I hadn't seen anything. He didn't believe me, but he left. He'll be back, Grace said, especially if more people report sightings. She looked at Lyra. Can you stay hidden? I stay in barn, Lyra said. I help Walter at night. No one sees. Grace thought for a moment. My son Owen, he's 16. Smart kid. Reads a lot, science and stuff. He'd never forgive me if I didn't tell him about this. She looked between them. Can I tell him? He can keep a secret. Walter looked at Lyra. The choice was hers. Lyra thought about it. More humans knowing meant more risk. But it also meant more friends, maybe. More people who would see her as a person, not a monster. Okay, she said finally. But only Owen. Grace smiled. Only Owen. I promise. She handed Pip back to Lyra carefully. Thank you for trusting me. Both of you. That afternoon, Grace brought Owen. The boy was tall and thin, with his mother's dark skin and eyes full of curiosity. When he saw Lyra, he didn't flinch. Instead, his eyes lit up. This is incredible, he breathed. You're real. You're actually real. And intelligent. Can you understand me? Yes, Lyra said. I understand. Owen looked like he might explode with excitement. Do you have written language? Mathematics? What about social structures? Are there more of you? Lyra liked this young human immediately. She spent the next hour answering his questions as best she could with her limited words. Owen filled in gaps, understanding more than she expected. He brought paper and drew complex symbols. Mathematics, he called it. Lyra recognized some of it. Her people used different symbols, but the concepts were similar. She showed him, drawing in her own style. They're the same, Owen said in awe. The math is the same. Different notation, but the same understanding. That means your people developed advanced abstract thinking independently. Grace and Walter watched the exchange with amazement. He's right, Grace said quietly to Walter. She's not just smart. She's educated. There's a whole civilization out there we're destroying. Walter nodded sadly. I know. That's why we have to protect them. The sky turned dark gray 3 days after Owen's visit. Walter checked his instruments and his face went pale. Big storm coming, he told Lyra. Worst in 20 years, they say. Most people go in a main settlement to wait it out. Lyra could feel it too. The air pressure dropping, the wind changing direction. Her instincts screamed danger. This wasn't a normal winter storm. This was the kind that killed. You go to? She asked Walter. He shook his head. Can't leave the animals. Can't leave you and Pip. We'll manage. I help, Lyra said firmly. The storm hit that night like a living thing. Wind howled so loud it hurt to hear. Snow came sideways, then up, then down again. The temperature dropped until even Lyra felt cold. Walter's house shook. The barn groaned. Did I in the barn? The animals panicked. The horses kicked their stalls. The goats bleated in fear. Pip huddled against Lyra, scared by the noise. Walter came running from the house, fighting the wind. Roof in the south shed is going to collapse, he shouted over the storm. The feed is in there. We lose that, the animals starve. Lyra didn't hesitate. She grabbed rope and followed Walter into the storm. The wind nearly knocked her over. Snow blinded her, but she could sense the shed ahead, could feel it straining against the wind. She used her body as a windbreak while Walter tied support ropes. Her wing, still not fully healed, screamed in pain as wind caught it. She ignored the pain. When Walter finished, they braced the walls together, her strength and his knowledge combining to hold the shed up. They worked through the night. Every time something threatened to break, they fixed it. Lyra discovered she could breathe fire, small controlled flames that melted ice, building up dangerously. Walter showed her where to aim. They moved in perfect coordination, not needing words anymore. As dawn broke gray and dim, they heard crying. Animal sounds from the direction of Grace's farm. Her horses, Walter said. They must have broken free. Grace's farm was half a mile away. In this storm, that might as well be another world. But horses loose in a blizzard would die. I go, Lyra said. You can't, Walter protested. You'll get lost. I feel them, Lyra said, tapping her chest. Vibrations in ground. I find them. Before Walter could argue more, she pushed into the storm. She followed the vibrations, the panicked hoof beats. Her people had always been able to sense movement through the earth. It was how they hunted, how they avoided danger. She found the horses huddled against a collapsed fence, 3 of them, wild with fear. When they saw her, they tried to run, but they were too weak. The storm had drained them. Lyra approached slowly. She made the soft sound she'd heard Walter use with his horses. The animals were too cold and scared to care that she was a dragon. They just wanted warmth. She laid down, making her body a shelter against the wind. She breathed warm air over them, not fire, just warmth. Slowly, the horses calmed. They pressed against her, seeking her heat, but they couldn't stay here. They would freeze. Lyra looked around and found pieces of the broken fence. She used them to make a sled. It took time, and her claws were clumsy, but she managed. She got the horses onto the sled, tied them loosely so they wouldn't panic. Then she pulled. The sled was heavy, the horses were big, but Lyra was bigger and stronger. She pulled them through the storm, following her sense of Walter's farm, following the vibrations she knew that it took hours. Her muscles burned. Her wing hurt so badly she wanted to cry. But she kept going. She finally saw Walter's barn through the snow. Walter was outside, searching for her, tied to a rope so he wouldn't get lost. When he saw her pulling the horses, his face showed shock, then joy, then worry. Together they got the horses into the barn. The animals were weak but alive. Walter covered them with blankets and brought warm water. They would survive. Grace arrived an hour later, fighting through the storm on a snow machine. She found her horses safe in Walter's barn, and Lyra collapsed in the corner, exhausted. You saved them, Grace said, tears freezing on her face. You went into that storm and saved my horses. Lyra was too tired to speak. She just nodded. Grace knelt beside her. I owe you everything. These horses, they were my grandmother's. The last thing I have of her. She reached into her coat and pulled out something small. A pendant on a chain. This was with them. My grandmother's necklace. I thought it was lost forever. She held it out to Lyra. Please, take it. I have nothing else to give you that means as much. Lyra looked at the necklace. It was silver with a blue stone. Beautiful. But she shook her head and gently pushed it back to Grace. Yours, she said. Keep it. I need no payment. Grace stared at her, then started crying for real. You're a better person than most people I know, she whispered. The storm lasted 2 more days. During that time, Walter's farm became a shelter. Grace stayed, along with her horses. Owen came too, worried about his mother. They all worked together, humans and dragon, keeping the animals safe and the buildings standing that on the second night, huddled together for warmth. Owen asked Lyra questions about her people. Where they came from, why they ran, what happened to them. Lyra told him, using the words she knew and drawings for the rest. She told him about her world, beautiful and green, about the war that came, species fighting for resources, about her people choosing to flee rather than fight, because they valued life over victory. We scattered, she said. Many worlds, small groups. Hide, survive, hope someday to rebuild. That's so sad, Owen said. You lost everything. Not everything, Lyra said, pulling Pip closer. I have Pip. Now I have Walter grace you. Maybe that is better than everything I lost. Those things were places and possessions. These are people who choose to care. Grace wiped her eyes. We need to tell people, she said. Not everyone will understand, but some will. Owen, the kids at school, they're different than us old folks. They might see what we see. Dangerous, Walter warned. Everything is dangerous, Grace replied. Doing nothing is dangerous too. How many more like Lyra are hiding, dying alone? They talked long into the night, making plans, weighing risks. By morning, they had decided. They would try. Carefully, slowly, they would try to change minds. Word spread faster than they expected. Owen told his best friend, who told his sister, who told her teacher. Within a week, half the farming community knew about Walter's dragon. Some were curious. Many were afraid. A few were angry. Marshal Devin Reed returned with official documents. He stood in Walter's kitchen, his face hard. You lied to me, he said. You're harboring a dangerous creature. She's not dangerous, Walter said calmly. She's intelligent. She's a person. The law doesn't recognize that, Devin said. The law says I remove her. Today, under what authority? Grace stood in the doorway. The colonial charter says wildlife management applies to animals. If she's intelligent, she's not wildlife. She's a resident. Devin stared at her. You're arguing legal technicalities? I'm arguing facts, Grace said. She speaks. She reasons. She saved my horses during the storm while risking her own life. That's not animal behavior. That's moral behavior. The council won't care, Devin said. He looked genuinely troubled. I have orders. Remove all dragons from settled areas. By force if necessary. Walter stood. You'll have to go through me. And me, Grace said. And me, Owen said from the doorway. Devin rubbed his face. You're all going to lose everything over this. Your farms, your rights, maybe your freedom. Then that's what we lose, Walter said. But we won't lose our humanity. That's worth more than farms. Before Devin could respond, noise erupted outside. Voices, lots of them. They went to the window. A crowd had gathered at the farm's entrance. Maybe 40 people, colonists from the surrounding area. Some held signs. Some held weapons. Great, Devin muttered. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. But as they watched, the crowd split into two groups. One side held angry signs. Keep our colony safe. Remove the threat. The other side held different signs. Intelligence is not dangerous. She saved our animals. Let them stay. The colony was divided. Devin looked at Walter. You need to make a choice. Surrender her peacefully, or this turns ugly. No, said a small voice from the barn entrance. Everyone turned. Lyra stood there, Pip beside her. She walked forward slowly, her head high. I choose, she said in her accented human words. Not Walter. Me. I am person. I decide. Devin's eyes widened. You speak. Yes, I speak. I think. I feel. Lyra looked at the crowd. I understand you fear me. Your people and my people, we have bad history. Blood between us. But I did not start that war. I am mother. I want only to raise my child in peace. Some of the crowd moved closer to hear her better. I am sorry for what my people did to yours, Lyra continued. If we hurt you, if we took from you, I am sorry. But please, see that I'm not those others. I am me. Just me. One mother with one child, asking for chance to live. She's manipulating you, someone shouted from the angry group. That's what they do. They seem peaceful, then they attack. I saved Grace's horses, Lyra said, looking at that person. In storm, I could have hidden safe. Instead, I risked my life for animals that are not even my kind. Why would I do this if I am predator waiting to attack? Grace stepped forward. She's telling the truth. My horses will be dead. I have proof. She held up her phone, showing photos of the storm aftermath. The horses safe in Walter's barn. She did this. Owen spoke up, his young voice carrying. I've spent hours with her. She knows mathematics, astronomy, agriculture. She has culture, history, art. That's not animal behavior. That's civilization. Then where are the rest of them? Someone challenged. Why is she alone? Lyra's voice dropped. Because you hunted us. Because my mate is dead. Because my clan scattered to survive. Because we hide or we die. Silence fell over the crowd. Even the angry group seemed uncertain now that a woman from the middle, neither group, spoke up. If we let her stay, will more come? Would that be bad? Walter asked. If they're intelligent, if they can work and contribute, why would that be bad? Resources, someone said. Jobs. Land. I need no job, Lyra said. I hunt my own food. I help Walter for free because he helped me. I ask only for safety. A place where Pip can grow without fear. Pip, hearing the name, chirped and did a little hop. Several people in the crowd smiled, despite themselves. We need to vote, said an older woman. Council vote. Let the whole colony decide. Devin looked relieved. That's actually a good idea. It removes the decision from me. He looked at Lyra. Will you accept the colony's decision? If they vote no, will you leave peacefully? Lyra looked at Walter, then at Grace and Owen. Her friends, her family. If they vote no, I leave. But I ask one thing. Let me speak to council first. Let me show I am worth trusting. Devin nodded slowly. Fair enough. Meeting tomorrow, town hall, 6 p.m. That night, Walter helped Lyra prepare. They practiced her speech. She had learned so many words now, could speak almost fluently if she went slowly. But she was terrified. What if they say no? She asked Walter. Then we figure something else out, he said. But I don't think they will. You heard that crowd. Half of them already support you. You just need to reach a few more. How? Be yourself, Walter said. That's all you need to be. The next evening, the town hall overflowed with people. Every seat filled, people standing in back, more watching through windows outside. Lyra walked in with Walter, Grace, and Owen beside her. Pip stayed at the farm with Grace's husband, the one human who Lyra trusted to babysit. The council sat at a long table up front. 5 people, 3 women and 2 men, all looking nervous. The council leader, an old woman, spoke first. This is unprecedented, she said. We're here to decide if an intelligent non-human can become a colony resident. Marshall Reed will present the case against. Lyra will present the case for. Then we vote. Devin went first. He laid out the concerns. Safety, resources, legal complications. He was fair, Lyra thought, not cruel, just worried. Then it was her turn. She stood before the council, before her entire future, and spoke. Lyra stood before the council and took a breath. Her voice shook at first, but grew stronger as she spoke. I am Lyra. I am mother. I am refugee. I am person. These are facts, not opinions. She paused. 6 weeks ago, I came to Walter's farm because my baby was dying. I expected guns. I expected death. Instead, I found kindness. Walter did not see monster. He saw a desperate mother, and he helped. She looked around the room at all the faces watching her. You fear me because I am different, because my people and yours have fought before. But I ask you to see clearly. Did I start those fights? Did I choose that history? No. I was born in a world at war, and I chose to flee rather than kill. That is who I am. Someone who chooses peace. During the big storm, I saved Grace's horses. I did not have to do this. I could have stayed safe. But I understood those horses meant something to Grace, same as Pip means something to me. So I risked my life because I understood love and loss and memory. Is that not what persons do? An older man in the crowd spoke up. But you're strong. Dangerous. What if you get angry? I am strong, yes, Lyra agreed. Walter is weak compared to me, but he is not defenseless. He has technology, one do not understand. Guns, machines, medicine. Should I fear him because of his power? No. I trust him because of how he uses that power. Same for me. Judge me by my actions, not my potential to harm. A young woman raised her hand. What about others of your kind? If we let you stay, will more come? Lyra nodded. I hope so. My people are scattered, afraid, hiding. If they hear there is a safe place, they will come. But they will come as I came. Desperate, grateful, peaceful. We are not invasion. We are refugees seeking home. And if they're not peaceful, someone challenged. Then you judge them individually, Lyra said. Same as you judge humans individually. Some humans are good. Some are bad. Same with my people. You have laws for humans who do wrong. Apply same laws to us. Fair laws. Equal laws. The council leader spoke. You're asking for citizenship essentially. Full resident rights. I am asking to exist without fear, Lyra corrected gently. To raise my child without hiding. To work and contribute. To be part of community, not enemy of it. Another council member, a middle-aged man, leaned forward. What can you contribute? Specifically, Lyra had prepared for this. Owen had helped her. I can lift heavy equipment humans cannot move safely. I can sense weather patterns days before your instruments. I can reach dangerous places for repairs without risk to human life. I can teach different perspective on mathematics and astronomy. My people studied stars for thousands of years. We can share knowledge. Owen stood up in the crowd. I verifiet hermat. It's real, it's advanced, and it's different from ours. Imagine what we could learn from combining our knowledge with theirs. Grace stood too. She saved my livelihood during that storm. She's already contributed more to this colony than most of us. Walter was last. She's my friend. First real friend I've had in years. She brings joy to my life. Pip makes me laugh every day. Is that not valuable? Connection? Happiness? Community? The council conferred quietly. Then the leader spoke. We'll hear testimony from anyone else who wants to speak, for or against. For the next hour, people spoke. Some told stories of dragon attacks from other colonies, expressing fear. But others spoke of seeing Lyra around Walter's farm, working peacefully, caring for Pip. Several children asked to speak, saying they wanted to meet Pip, wanted to learn about dragon culture. One little girl said Lyra looked lonely and everyone deserved friends. Finally, the council called for the vote. All in favor of granting Lyra residential status, with the understanding that each dragon who comes will be evaluated individually. 3 hands went up immediately. The 4th hesitated, then slowly rose. 4 out of 5. Motion passes, the council leader said. Lyra, you're officially a resident of Whitehaven Colony. Welcome. The room erupted in noise. Cheering from some, angry shouts from others. But the cheering was louder. Lyra felt her legs go weak. Walter caught her arm, steadying her. She looked at him and saw tears on his face. Happy tears. You did it, he whispered. You're safe now. We did it, she corrected. All of us together. Over the next 6 months, everything changed. 3 more dragons approached the colony cautiously, drawn by rumors of safety. The colony evaluated each one. 2 were granted residency. 1 was denied due to aggressive behavior and sent away. Walter's farm became an unofficial meeting place between species. Dragons helped with heavy farm work in exchange for food and safety. Humans taught dragons about technology and human culture. Dragons taught humans about weather sense and star navigation. Pip grew strong and confident, playing with human children who visited the farm. The little dragon learned both languages, becoming a natural translator. Owen spent so much time studying dragon mathematics that his school created a special program for him. Grace organized the first human-dragon cultural exchange. Dragons demonstrated their traditional songs, which humans recorded and studied. Humans shared their art and literature. Both sides learned they had more in common than different. Not everyone was happy. The angry faction remained, though they grew smaller. Devon, the marshal, eventually became one of Lyra's strongest supporters after she helped rescue colonists trapped by collapsed mine. Her strength and her willingness to risk her life for humans, she barely knew changed his mind completely. A government official arrived from the central colonies to investigate. Director Allison Park, a stern woman with sharp eyes. She spent 3 weeks observing. She interviewed everyone. She tested Lyra's intelligence with complex problems. She watched Pip play with human children. She attended a council meeting where dragons and humans debated together about water rights on our last day. Director Park called a public meeting. "I came here expecting to find a colony in chaos," she said. "Instead, I found something remarkable. You've built the first successful multi-species community in human-colonized space. Your dragons are clearly intelligent persons deserving of legal protection. I'm recommending to the Galactic Council that Whitehaven become the model for how we approach other intelligent species we encounter." She looked directly at Lyra. "Your people will be granted protected status across all human colonies. Hunting them is now illegal. Colonies must evaluate them for residency fairly. You did this. You and the humans who chose to see you as a person." Lyra bowed her head. "We did this together. That is important. Not just dragons, not just humans. Together." That evening, Lyra sat on Walter's porch as the sun set. Pip was inside, sleeping curled up with Walter's oldest cat. Grace and Owen were coming for dinner. 3 other dragon families now lived in the valley, building their own homes, starting their own friendships. Walter came out and sat beside her. "You thinking about your mate?" he asked gently. "Yes," Lyra said. "I wish he could see this. See Pip safe and happy. See our people welcomed instead of hunted. He'd be proud of you," Walter said. "He would be proud of you too," Lyra said. Human who looked a frightened mother and chose kindness over fear. You started all of this. One act of compassion became ripple that changed everything. Walter smiled. "I just gave you some milk and a warm place to sleep." "No," Lyra said firmly. "You gave me hope. You show me that species does not determine heart. That courage sometimes looks like feeding stranger instead of shooting them. That family can be chosen, not just born. You taught entire colony these things through your example." She looked at the sunset, painting the sky in orange and purple. Dragon families flew overhead, heading home from work. Human children waved at them from the ground. The town that had nearly driven her away now welcomed her people with open arms. "I came here to save my baby," Lyra said quietly. "But you saved more than Pip. You saved me. You saved my people. You saved the idea that different species can live together peacefully. That is gift beyond measure." Walter reached over and patted her clawed hand. "You gave me a gift too. You gave me family again. Purpose. Joy. Thank you for trusting me, Lyra. Thank you for being worthy of trust," she replied. As darkness fell, the valley lit up with lights from both human and dragon homes. A community built on the foundation of one old farmer's kindness and one desperate mother's courage. Different species, one home, together. The future was uncertain, as all futures are. But tonight, under stars that both species loved to study, there was peace. There was hope. And there was proof that the greatest strength of humanity was not their weapons or their technology, but their willingness to extend compassion across impossible divides, to see persons where others saw monsters, and to choose connection over fear. Pip came running out, chirping happily, and climbed into Lyra's lap. Walter laughed and scratched the little dragon's head. Grace and Owen arrived, bringing food to share, and life, in all its strange and wonderful complexity, continued in the valley where everything had changed because one human chose to be kind.